One of Jeffrey Epstein's prison guards apparently searched the convicted sex offender's name on Google just minutes before Epstein was found dead in 2019.
A report from the New York Post says the guard is a woman named Tova Knoll, who worked at the Metropolitan Correctional Center where Epstein was being held prisoner. The Post article says Knoll Googled latest on Epstein in jail at 5:42 a.m., again at 5:52 a.m., less than 40 minutes before her colleague, correctional officer Michael Thomas, found the disgraced financier dead in his cell by hanging at 6:30 a.m., according to an FBI record of Knoll's internet search history that night. Now, in a sworn statement to the DOJ in 2021, Knoll said she had no recollection of Googling Epstein, and she suggested the FBI records were inaccurate. Knoll and Officer Michael Thomas were both charged with falsifying records, indicating they had performed required checks on Epstein every 30 minutes. Footage obtained by prosecutors showed instead they went 8 hours without checking on Epstein at all until after he was dead. The charges against the two were later dropped. They reached a plea deal.
Another file from the DOJ shows that Knoll's bank account was flagged in a suspicious activity report to the FBI. The bank says there were 12 deposits beginning in April 2018, culminating with the largest deposit for $5,000 in July 2019. That was less than 2 weeks before Epstein's death. As you might expect, these revelations went viral on social media. Congressman Ted Lieu, writing on X, quote, "The number of troubling coincidences keeps piling up regarding the death of Jeffrey Epstein. The investigation into Epstein's death must be reopened and conducted by an independent entity instead of by people who work under a giant banner of Trump's face."
But others were more skeptical, like journalist and radio host John Ziegler, who wrote, "This is somewhat consistent with the theory that guards let Epstein kill himself, though hardly proof. But like every bombshell in this case, it actually works against the conspiracy theory, because if guards let him kill himself, and he was not murdered, and everything falls apart." So I don't find the Googling him all that necessarily suspicious, or what was that supposed to indicate exactly? You could be a prison guard and have interest in a high security prisoner and Google who is this prisoner. That seems not nefarious.
And the search terms were something like latest on Epstein in jail, which,
right.
you know, if
it's
you're
not like how to cover up hanging death or something.
right. How to get away with hanging a prisoner and make it seem like he killed himself.
Right. Now, the payments, though, they were flagged as suspicious. That means they're suspicious. They're generally things are flagged as suspicious when they're suspicious. That does, frankly, strike me a little bit. What that tips me toward, because they were like, I think it was $5,000 or something. It was not
that was the biggest individual.
That's enough to cover up a murder? I think that's enough to let him commit suicide. I think, again, to go down the rabbit hole of it, that would lead me to believe that they were maybe neglectful on purpose so that he would have time to off himself, so that he arranged that, or a friend would arrange that. That would not be someone out to kill him. That would be him wanting. I mean, which we have to understand. There is ample reason he would kill himself in these circumstances. He's facing, now he's going back to, he's being charged again with extremely, like, you go to prison for the rest of your life. He got lucky once, he's not getting lucky again. People kill themselves under these circumstances in prison all the time. People kill themselves in prison. People facing underage sex charges kill themselves a lot, because prison is not a fun place for them. Also, the prison guards just being neglectful is the typical state of a prison. Like, these people are not paid a lot of money. They're not super professionally trained. They're supposed to check on him every 30 minutes. It was in the middle of the night. Instead, they were sitting around doing nothing. Is not a circumstance that needs additional explanation, frankly. It is the way prisons are. But you're saying they also got paid to look the other way. That's not that crazy to me. But that speaks to, again, that would make me think they're in on the suicide, not that some external force was trying to kill him to prevent him from speaking. I would think that would take more money.
So
that's my theory.
Yeah, I mean, I think we do need to be clear at the start that this guard and her colleagues all deny any kind of wrongdoing at all. And so what is happening here is a lot of speculation based on some facts that I would say invite further scrutiny, but obviously aren't dispositive,
Yeah.
and you're not claiming they're dispositive either of anything one way or another. Now, I am curious. I think it was the New York Post report noted that the woman whom we're referring to was driving a something like $60,000 vehicle at the time while employed as a prison guard.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, maybe she has some other well, clearly she has some other sources of income, otherwise those cash deposits wouldn't have been made. But, I think that it is certainly valid to say, that's interesting. I am not imputing any kind of guilt to her at all. Like you, the Google search, to me, that's getting a bit into the conspiracy rabbit hole. Like, why? Admittedly,
I mean, a more indicative Google search would mean something, right?
Right.
There was that one, I think it's right, the Casey Anthony murder or something, where there are Google search terms for how to dispose, that
and
that makes you go, okay.
And I've watched enough true crime TV around time to see people, getting undone by search histories that are literally like, how do you dispose of a body kind of thing, right? So this isn't anything along those lines. But it's interesting. I thought, given that you are, I think, rather skeptical at times of the whole Epstein matter, I was expecting you to be much more, have fewer questions about this, or say, oh, it's all innocuous.
Well, no, I mean, the
but you clearly don't think
circumstances
it
of
is.
his death are never, I was always for investigating that more fully, and there are things that seem odd if you don't know anything about how prisons work, if you don't know anything about how neglectful and like the cameras are never, they're like, oh, but the cameras are working. The cameras are never working. Like the escalator on the metro is never working. Things that the government runs fall apart and don't get fixed. Like that's the normal state of public works. So none of that is by itself suspicious, but it can certainly be investigated further. And again, that why would he kill himself is not a question it's a question that has an Occam razor's answer. That people kill themselves under these circumstances all the time. But yes, we can look into it more, and I find the payments suspicious. I find the financial, that's a tangible thing. That's a fact.
Sure.
So much of this is based on insinuation and theory and, well, what if, and who knows, and what if there's more information being hidden from us. Suspicious payments are a fact. That's a record. That's a transaction. You can't make money out of nowhere. So that's a piece of actual evidence that something could be awry. So that should be looked into further. Honestly, it should be.
Yeah, no, I mean, I wouldn't dispute that. The other thing that I was reminded of in reading up about this is, obviously there's been so much focus in recent weeks on Epstein's crimes and the connections of people whom he knew. And I had sort of forgotten some of the things about his action, the manner of his death. So it would appear that he got either fabric of some kind, I'm not sure if it was clothing or blankets, that he wouldn't really have got in the normal run of things, and then used those to kill himself. So like, how did that happen? Is that just a sort of random neglect of the type you're talking about that then has these consequences, or is there something more to be probed there?
I mean, he's in a condition where he is known to be at risk of suicide for all the reasons we're discussing. So their work was to keep him alive, which they failed to do. So they didn't check on him they're supposed to check on him every 30 minutes, because if something had happened in 30 minutes, you might be able to revive the person. Right. And they don't do that all night, and thus this happens.
Yeah.
And so we
naturally
have questions about those kinds of things.
Absolutely.
Next up, more to talk about on Rising. Please stay with us.